Welcome to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results. Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the podcast today. I am excited about this episode because I think that this next quarter of the year, the last quarter of the year, can be a game changer. And the reason that I think that is because I really wanted to call this whole theme for this whole episode, lean into the year end. Because here's the thing, this podcast episode is coming out the first week of October. So we've got October, November, December to go to the end of the year, obviously. So the last quarter of the year, right? The last 3 months, the last 90 days approximately by the time you hear this podcast. And here's the thing. I know, because I've seen it over and over and over again from how many people who we get to this point of the year and you go into October with a lot of momentum. And let me just say, October is one of my favorite times of year, if not the favorite. I love when the weather starts to turn just a little bit cooler. October is my birthday month. It's just a good time of year. It's a little bit less miserable outside when you walk outside in the middle of the day. It's actually a little crisp and cool. And, then there's pumpkin spice everything, which honestly goes a little overboard, pumpkin spice everything, but nothing wrong with a little pumpkin spice in your life. And it's funny, I'm already seeing like Christmas decorations in the stores, much less Halloween decorations, but Christmas decorations are already in the store. But nonetheless, I love this time of year, this change of the seasons. And I think naturally, as the seasons change, is a great time for us to naturally just pause and reflect, like check in with where we are and where we want to be, right? And what's the gap between those two? And it's okay to have a gap, right? We all have a gap because as long as we're growing and as long as we're improving and striving, we're going to have a gap between where we are now and where we want to be in the future. That's natural. That's a good, healthy thing that we have goals and dreams and a vision of a better future. So I think that the changing of the seasons is a great time to naturally just pause and reflect and check in with yourself relative to your goals, relative to what you wanted to accomplish this year. Because here's the thing, that's where I started to say a minute ago before I got sidetracked. Here's the thing. Most people come into October, they've got a little bit of momentum from the changing of the seasons and life is just starting to get a little busier this time of year. And then what happens over the next 4 weeks, it's to 4 to 6 weeks, is most people just get caught up in the busyness of the holiday season. And then all of their goals, all of the things that they were working for just kind of go out the window. And it kind of just snowballs. And then suddenly you just kind of throw in the towel and say, well, I'll start again in January. I'll start again after the New Year's. Maybe you have goals for your physical health, but Thanksgiving's coming and holiday parties and Christmas dinners and all of those holiday cookies. And so you used to think, well, just another cookie here and another cookie here, an extra slice of pie at that holiday. And then suddenly, you've like, man, I had a goal to keep my health and my weight in check for this year, but the holidays just snuck up to me, right? And so we just start to excuse our way out of our goals. And I don't want that for you. I want you to lean into the year end. I want you to lean into this next 90 days and say, you know what? Maybe everybody else is going to throw in the towel on what they wanted to accomplish this year, but I'm going to sprint toward the finish. I'm not going to slow down as I approach the finish line of 2021. I'm going to sprint. I'm going to lean in and I'm going to sprint my hard effort right here because that's where you can find magic in the game. It's the game changer, right? That's where you find the magic in getting a head start on yourself and your goals and your dreams. It's not really about being in competition with somebody else, but I want you to look around, right? Where the world is is throwing in the towel and saying, you know what, I'll start again next year. Maybe you had goals for growing your business, or maybe you had, like me, you had a goal to read a certain number of books this year, and you find yourself a little behind and you're like, well, I'm a little behind. I'm just going to give up on that dream or that goal and start again next year. No, because then the last 90 days of the year, number one, that's 25% of the year, right? You realize that if you throw in the towel now and just say, oh, I missed that mark, I'm going to try again next year. No. I was running this morning, and on my running plan, my training plan was a 9-mile marathon tempo run. And so what that means basically is that I was supposed to run for 9 miles at my goal marathon pace. And that's tough. Like, that's a challenge for me. Number one, because my goal marathon pace, I'm setting a big stretch goal for this particular marathon coming up in November. I know I'm setting a big goal. I know I'm setting a goal that's going to challenge me, that I'm going to have to stretch, that I'm going to have to reach. And here's the thing about that. I might not make it. And I know that. And I think as humans, particularly as we become adults and we start to filter our dreams and our goals because of the fear of what other people might think or what they might say, and that there's always that inherent fear of failure when we set a big goal for ourselves. And it's funny, I felt that fear for myself when I started training over the summer. I was coming back off of an injury. Last season was just not a good season for me in running, and that's okay, right? Life is full of seasons, and last season was just not my season. And coming into the summer and starting to train, and I sit down and look at my training plan and set the goal for myself based on the time that I want to finish this marathon in. And I felt that fear of saying, well, you know what, I could set my goal at this time, and I know I can do that. That's a very comfortable goal. I know I can do that, right? That's not a stretch. There's no pressure associated with that, really. I mean, barring an injury or something weird or the weather kind of completely not cooperating, that's not even a tough race for me. Like, I know I could do that goal. And so that would be here. But I also know that I am capable of more, and I'm not going to reach more unless I strive. But in striving is not only is it uncomfortable and it's work, and it's, it means running a whole lot of runs at an uncomfortable pace, it also comes with that fear of failure. And so it's kind of like we want to give ourselves an excuse. And I find that in myself, like my whole thought process was setting this stretch goal. And then I'm like, I might not make it. And I know that. And so then I want to go, well, I'm not going to really put 100% into these training runs. And then if I don't make it, I can say, well, if I had given it 100%, I would have been better. Right. And how crazy is that? That's not even logical. And yet that's the loop that my brain wants to go in, is if, well, I don't try and then I don't make my goal, then it doesn't really reflect on me because I wasn't giving it my best. And how much of a paradox that is, because sure, if we don't try our best, we're never going to reach our best, right? So I throw that out there because I recognize that all of us have that sense of sometimes we might have a big dream or a goal, and a lot of times we won't make all of the right choices that are going to help us get there because we want to have a safety net. We want to have something to say, well, this happened, and so I didn't reach my goal because for whatever reason, I had to do this, or I didn't do this, or I didn't try to do this, but that's okay. I didn't put forth the effort. And so then we don't feel like failure is a reflection on us. Does that make sense? It's almost like if we give 100% of our best and we don't reach it, then we feel like we don't feel like I failed. We feel like I am the failure. And I want you to get rid of that belief, because coming up in the last quarter of the year, I want your last 90 days of 2021 to be the best 90 days of 2021, right? Lean into this, and it's uncomfortable. It's a little bit of a push, it's a little bit of stretch. And yes, you absolutely have to look that fear in the face and say, you know what? Just because I don't reach my goal doesn't mean that I am the failure. It just means I didn't make it this time. So I went out for my training run this morning, and like, some of these fast training runs for me, they are a challenge. And it's like I have to do all the things right just to run my best. I have to make sure I'm getting enough sleep and eating enough carbohydrates. And about mile 7 of this 9-mile run, I mean, I was just exhausted. Like my legs were tired. I was sweaty and breathing hard, and I was like, this is not fun anymore, right? And it's almost tempting to just say, well, I'll stop here and call it a day. And I'll just say, oh, 7 miles was close enough to 9. And see, I just wanted to let myself off the hook. I just wanted to say, wasn't in the cars today. I'm going to stop my watch. Now, there's absolutely a time and a place to renegotiate our goals, our deadlines for ourselves, and the choices that we make. Absolutely. It's sometimes healthy to reevaluate those and renegotiate those for ourselves. But what I want to make sure that you understand the difference between, I don't want to, and so I'm going to let myself off the hook, or, oh, this isn't the best thing for me, so I'm going to redirect, right? There's a big difference between those two, because anytime we stretch and reach and strive, we're going to feel that pressure of, I don't want to stretch all the time. I don't want to go out and run for 9 miles. I only want to run 7 today. And the difference between I didn't want to, but I did anyway, is where we find success most of the time. Because anything worth having is going to require us to work and strive and reach, right? If you want to build your own business, let me just tell you, it is so, there's incredible amount of work in that. And I think when Mike and I first really, started on this journey, it's been almost 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. We had no clue about just how hard it was going to be, for me, from working in a career, and I had a good career in a great organization, and stepping away from that and starting off in a new venture. And I had no clue how hard it was going to be to actually build that business, build that presence, and step into the space of adding value to people through writing and speaking and training. I had no clue. I didn't know what I didn't know about how difficult. And that's okay. I think a lot of times when when we have a dream and we set off in a new direction, a lot of times we don't know how hard it's going to be. And that's okay, because if we knew how hard it was going to be, we might not do it, right? That's the beautiful thing about having a dream, is it's going to be work, but you might not know how hard it's going to be on the front end, and that's okay. But as long as you're committed to it instead of just interested in it. And that's the difference. Like on my run this morning, I was committed to those 9 miles. Now, I'll tell you that that last mile was not as fast as I would have wanted, but I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to let myself off the hook and just jog back, right? I was just going to say, you know what? I'm not letting myself off the hook. I'm committed to this training run. I'm not just interested in having a certain time or a certain mile or a certain training plan. I'm committed to it. And there's a big gap between interest and committed, right? That's where you strive, that's where you push. And so as you look back on the last 3 quarters of this year and you look forward into the last quarter of this year, are you still committed to the goals that you set for yourself? It's just a natural time to reflect and redirect if you need to, but make sure that you're not letting yourself off the hook just because you were interested in what you wanted to accomplish, but you weren't committed to it, right? I don't want that for you. I want more for you. And I know you're capable of it. Just like I was capable of running my 9 miles. And yeah, it wasn't any fun. It was downright tough, but there's nothing that replaces that feeling of I leaned in and I pushed and I strived, and maybe I didn't quite accomplish the time that I wanted for this morning, but I accomplished my best effort, right? And that's where the commitment comes in, is being committed to the process that gets us to success, and then detached from the outcome, And like I say, a lot of times we focus on what we can control, and the rest will take care of itself. But don't worry about the things that you cannot control because you can't control them. So don't spend any of your time or effort or energy worrying about it. Right? If you can't control it, don't waste your energy on that. Focus your energy on what you can control. And what I can control in preparing for this marathon is I can, commit to my training runs and my training plan, and yeah, maybe I don't make the time that the training plan says 100% of the time, and that's okay, right? I am committed to what I can do, committed to the process, the journey, and then on the day of the race, I know that I've put forth my best effort, and whatever it is that day is what it's going to be, but I'm more committed to the process, and the outcome it'll be whatever it'll be. And that's okay, because that means if the outcome's not what I want it to be, it doesn't mean I'm a failure, right? Because I know that I put the work in, I did what I needed to do. The rest is just, honestly, it's just whatever happens. And there's freedom in that, because that's where the commitment comes in. That means we can set stretch goals for ourselves. And maybe we don't always hit them yet, right? That's the magic of that, is that three-letter word that says, I didn't make this time for this marathon race yet. And that's the difference, right? It's just like when your kids learn to walk, they pull up and they fall down, and they pull up and they take a step and they fall down, and they pull up and they take two steps and then they fall down. But we don't call it failing to learn to walk. So whatever you wanted to accomplish for this year, just because you might not be where you want to be relative to that goal, it doesn't mean you've failed. It doesn't mean you are a failure. But don't let yourself off the hook in the last quarter, right? Lean in to the year end. And this is where a lot of times the difference between I was interested in this goal for 2021 and I was committed to it. Until next time.